Goku and Vegeta's do's may be biologically believable. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, you know me. I like to make stories about bold what-ifs and discuss things with my pal Haverock, as well as sometimes my fiancée Philly, about how Dragon Ball has either inspired the real world to change its outlook, how some of its own content is derived from other properties and traditions within Eastern Asia, and even sometimes may inadvertently be somewhat accurate when it comes to the real world and real biology. We have seen this a couple of times in the videos where I don my lab coat to get all sciencey, like the Super Saiyan genetics video, as well as my more recent one, where we actually managed to propose that whole thing about Toriyama's S-cell thing, you know, aping Star Wars, and how it may be viable within actual humanoid biology. Organelles, if any of you remember that from school or college. Now Gohan, who said cells were boring? And yeah, that second video, you guys really were quite torn by that. Did I touch a nerve? Either way, there's a lot of fascinating scientific stuff in that video that we really had fun discovering, so do give it a look-see or a second chance up top. Today, we are continuing our venture into Super Saiyan science, all the S's there, or Dragon Biology, whatever title sounds better to you. The topic of today's video is about one thing that may seem to be quite innocuous or non-consequential, but is actually something that is right in front of our very noses, or more accurately, above them, and one of the things that makes these characters really stand out from one another, and in fact in most anime, or all of it, that is of course hair. Hair in Dragon Ball is pretty much one of the things that you could describe as being the biggest identifier of characters out there. Sometimes they change their look, in the case of Bulma that's every other week, and sometimes even their colour, because there was somebody in the Toei animation department who didn't get a certain memo back at the beginning of Z. Now hair on its own is cool and all, but the topic at hand for this discussion is that of Saiyan hair. Now you're probably thinking, what is the difference? Well, quite a bit actually. Even before going into the theories that we are supposing in this video, the stuff already established. Firstly, what does Toriyama say about the subject of Saiyan hair? Well, it's only a couple of things, with the first one being a thing that Vegeta says in the Cell Saga, so in terms of dialogue. According to the prince, and so by proxy Toriyama, a Saiyan's hairstyle usually doesn't change from the day that they are born, except of course for beards and moustaches. And we see that to full effect in Dragon Ball GT, with, you know, of course Vegeta's moustache. Also, when it's cut, and this is done by inference, it grows back to its original shape and tends to stay there, because you've seen sometimes Goku gets his hair cut and then it somehow gets back to the way it was, it doesn't like grow out even more. And oh yeah, if you wanted to actually try and cut the Saiyan's hair, it's very difficult to when compared to human hair. You need some intense tools to do so. And even though half Saiyans, their hair does grow out continuously, it's still probably just as strong. Chi-Chi probably has some kind of scissors which are made out of the hardest material on Earth or something when cutting Goten and Gohan's hair or something. Why might this be? Well, let's look at what Toriyama has to say. It's not that their hairstyle never changes. Nappa went bald after all. The states of Saiyan hair are also the same as Earthlings. Its properties are just a little bit different. That is true, Saiyans can go bald since Nappa did have hair in his youth. Perhaps maybe baldness within Saiyans is just much rarer, you know, it doesn't happen as often. But either way, what makes their hair so much stronger and more resilient than human hair? The actual key little bit of difference. To answer that, we need to actually explain what hair is from WebMD, to understand what it actually is at the biological level. Hair is made of a tough protein called keratin. A hair follicle anchors each hair into the skin. Blood vessels nourish the cells in their hair bulb and deliver hormones that modify hair growth and structure at different times of life. Tough proteins, eh? Well, Saiyans are inherently stronger than regular humans, so that might be a contributing factor as to why their do's are generally tougher. We need to talk about the topic of the video at hand. Could a Saiyan's hair realistically exist? Could it change shape and color instantly when stimulated by energy on a biological level? So for that, Philly has graciously helped me once more, and for that, I need to don my lab coat again. So, 2 ticks. So, are there any organisms that can change their appearance at all? Yes, there are. 3 types of organisms can do so with about 21 animals, including Arctic hares, foxes, lemmings, chameleons, and even birds, all being able to exhibit the ability to adapt their appearance, usually colorless or shades or stuff, in the wild. Might these natural examples help explain in some way how Super Saiyan hair works? Let's get the Toriyama-styled elephant out of the room. The reason that Toriyama has told journalists time and time again that Super Saiyan looks the way it does is simply to look tough. You know, take out two birds with one stone, to cut down on time inking Goku's hair in the Namek saga so you can speed up production. It was a time-saving measure in the moment. There. Doesn't mean that we can't talk and discuss about the biological viability of Toriyama's decision and influence though. But going back to hair. Hair, or fur, which as we said was made from keratin, is also laced with melanin, a common pigment that is found throughout the animal kingdom. Melanin production determines the shade and colour of a particular animal, depending on eye colour, hair shade, what have you. Lower levels of melanin result in light shades, and darker shades indicate higher levels of melanin. Any changes in colour or shade, often over a longer period of time, tends to be cued by changes in light intensity and duration, say, for example, during the changing of the seasons or exposure to sunlight. In albino animals, melanin production is so low you can see a lack of pigmentations in their eyes, which are seen as red or similar shades to red. That's how low production is within their bodies. However, don't get excited just yet. Even though these organisms can change hair shades, it takes a lot of time for these changes to occur, as it involves the replacement of hair follicles during the change, and thusly would not really account alone for how a Super Saiyan's hair is the way it is, changing colour almost instantly. It's not like you see a Super Saiyan going bald and then suddenly regrowing their hair again a different shade. Actually, maybe Nappa tried and failed to go Super Saiyan and it meant that he actually lost all of his hair. But what we talked about just now though is only an example of a coat of an animal going from dark to light, not a change of actual colour, so I just got to stress that out on Philly's behalf. There are no other animals that can change hair colour specifically, but there are organisms who can change their skin colour. Might we find answers there? And in the case of Super Saiyans, they are able to change their precise hair colour and length, depending, of course, on the transformation that they are performing. So there are three different predominant types or groups of colour molecules or pigment colours found within the animal kingdom. So you got melanin, as stated before. Melanin specifically are granules of colour that can be produced in skin, feathers or hair, and they generally range from dark black to brown to pale yellow through to white. See where we're going with this, yellow, hair. Then there are the carotenoids, which are actually plant-based pigments, which you can see displayed in things like carrots. Kakarot, eh? Getting excited? And these are responsible for yellows and also interact with melanin to produce green colours. Carotenoids are best witnessed actually during the autumn months, or fall months if you're in America, when leaves lose their chlorophyll and all that is left are carotenoids, hence why they appear in shades of yellow, orange or red. Now the last one are called porphyrins. These ones are produced by the modification of amino acids. These appear different colours based on the structure of amino acids which are produced by the animals themselves. And here, they can even fluoresce bright red when exposed to UV light. For example, they are found in some rocks that exhibit this behaviour. Porphyrins produce a wide range of colours from pinks to browns to reds and greens. So, nice little combination there. But I know what you're going to be saying. Okay, Super Saiyan Blue. Blue pigmentations don't naturally exist, so I will say that there. Animals have not acquired the genes to produce such a pigment, although it would be a really big advantage in some way. But the animals which appear blue look this way due to the structure of the follicles, feathers or scales. Interestingly, many frogs or snakes only appear green because they are able to produce a yellow pigment, yet they have deep down blue structural features which together combine to make a green tint. You know, how blue and yellow, you mix them together, you get green. So sometimes, when the life of a snake is done, their skin would change from green to blue, because the yellow pigment would fade due to production of it ceasing and only leaving the blue intact, which is seen in their scales. So naturally, if you took the pigment out of a snake, they appear blue. That could explain all the different colour variants that appear within the show. Certain pigments may react in various ways, depending on which type of energy is being stimulated and stimulating a particular type of pigment, or how much of said energy is being produced. But to bring it back to Dragonball, Super Saiyans 1 through 3, the natural forms of Super Saiyan that an average Saiyan could attain, are colored yellow due to a reaction maybe caused by energy stimulation in their ki and cells, which react with the color pigments in their hair or their scalp to change color to yellow or gold shades, which we have said to naturally exist with these pigments. So, yeah, Saiyans are chock full perhaps of carotenoids at least, and since it's plant-based, it makes even more sense since this pigment can be found in vegetables. Oh my goodness, this is actually perfect. You know, Saiyans, vegetables, Okay, there is one thing that we need to talk about to wrap this theory up. How can a Saiyan change the colour and rigidity of their hair so rapidly? You know, how a Super Saiyan's hair stands on end. Well, there are two animal groups which are famous for being able to change their colour rapidly, so let's get that out of the way first. The most iconic is the chameleon. The way it does this are by the use of iridophore cells. These contain nanocrystals of different sizes and shapes, similar to the structural idea we mooted earlier. They can change the structural arrangement in the upper cells of their skin by either relaxing or exciting their skin, which leads to the differences in colour. In a relaxed state, the nanocrystals within chameleons, in these iridophore cells of course, are close together, and so they will reflect short wavelength cells of light appearing in the blue spectrum. Now when the skin becomes tightened, the distance between these nanocrystals, they will increase, they'll stretch out, and they will then begin to reflect longer wavelengths of light, such as yellows, oranges, or reds. Now bringing this back to Super Saiyans, Super Saiyan Blue is inherently meant to be all about relaxing your body and being calm. So therefore, perhaps Saiyans have nanocrystals within their hair follicles or again scalp, which turn blue when their ki is relatively calm, the reaction there. And for regular Super Saiyan, it tightens up, and we get those yellow tints as well as Super Saiyan God actually. It kind of fits surprisingly well. Another animal group, cephalopods, squids, cuttlefish, what have you, exhibit similar mannerisms. They contain cells called chromatophores. At the center of each of these cells, which are just below the skin, there is an elastic sac which contains these pigments. In octopi, this could be either black, brown, orange, and through to yellow. Again, yellow? They are controlled by nerves and muscles, and when the sac is expanded or contracted, it makes a particular color more visible. In addition, they also have iridophore cells, as before, and they also have leucophores. The iridophores are those reflectors which produce or create greens, blues, silvers, and golds, whereas leucophores reflect the colors of the environment, hence allowing the ability to cloak themselves or camouflage. Similar to the Saiyans, cephalopods can also change the projections of their skin, much like how Saiyans can change the shape and structure of their hair, when transformed perhaps. But let's tie all of this together and try and define a Saiyan's hair and what it could be made out of. Firstly, there's the keratin. That's still present, but in more dense qualities leading to stronger hair, which cannot be cut with traditional implements. You need stronger stuff. Next, either the hair itself or the follicles within Saiyan's scalp contain perhaps chromatophores or nanocrystals, which react to certain stimuli such as ki or emotional stroke chemical compositions to produce the trademark hair colors of Saiyans and maybe even how their hair stands up. You could throw in the nugget about how animals like cats tend to puff themselves up hair-wise. We see Smokey do this all the time to appear more aggressive and larger than before. That could be another factor. It's all about Saiyans looking tougher and more intimidating. Lastly, what could explain a Super Saiyan's hair changing length considerably in the greater forms? Well, that might be down to metabolism, but this one's more of a guess. Where I'm going with this is that as Super Saiyans 1 through 3 are first conveyed, their hair length increases from 1 and 2 and 3. Between 1 and 2, it's not so much, and that's why Super Saiyan 2, once achieved, is more sustainable. It's just a slight increase as well as increased rigidity. But when we get to 3 though, that hair is way longer, comedically so, and that may be down to a monstrously large increase in metabolic output. This might explain why, despite years of training in this form, in the other world, Goku cannot use this form for long periods of time. Minutes, in fact. Diminishing returns. It's down to the fact that his body cannot maintain this power, and the hair is a byproduct of this increase in metabolism. But again, this part is just a hunch, but all the other stuff that we've talked about has more weight to it though. Much like how the weight of Super Saiyan 3 hair is much greater too. So what do you guys think? Do you think Philly and I have something to this? Are you now going to be looking at foxes and birds and thinking that they could go even further beyond? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!